This episode of The Rookie Hunter is sponsored by North Arm Knives. North Arm Knives are handcrafted and sold directly through a father and son team right here in British Columbia. Choose from a selection of outdoor knives, kitchen knives, and the brand new folding knife from northarmknives.com. They ship internationally and guarantee all their work. Callie and I use their products and give them our stamp of approval. Go to northarmknives.com. Hey guys, welcome to episode 31. Today on The Rookie Hunter, we've got Aron Snyder. I don't think he needs too much of an introduction, but if you're not familiar with who he is the co-host of the Gritty Bowman podcast. He is the chief designer at Kifaru International, co-founder of rockslide.com. That's ROKSLIDE, Rockslide. Lots of good information on that website, including their forum. He is also a professional photographer and basically an expert on backpacking and survival. So we're very lucky to have this podcast. Kelly and I are planning a trip, as some of you know, to northern British Columbia, and we thought we'd take this opportunity while speaking with Aron to submit to him some of our questions, some of the things we're wondering about, some of the preparations we need to make, some of the gear things we should be considering, all that. We put that forward to Aron, and he answered all of our questions in great detail. So anyone who's planning a multi-day trip this year, there's lots of good information. Make sure you get out a pen and paper and take some notes on this one, because he had a ton of great information for us. So in the meantime, a lot of new listeners coming in for the first time. If you want to help us out, there are a number of things you can do. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can also leave us a rating or review. These things only take a few minutes, a few seconds really to do, and they help us out a lot. If you want to take it one step further, you can donate to the show. It does cost Kelly and I money to make this thing happen. So if you want to help us improve and grow the show, you can donate to us. Otherwise, ratings and reviews and subscribing is all you need to do. We really appreciate whatever you guys can do, so thank you in advance for doing that. I'm going to leave it at that for this one. So you guys know what to do. Sit back, relax, crack a cold beer, and enjoy episode 31 with Aron Snyder. Kelly Molnar. Episode 31. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
These the episodes just keep racking up one at a time.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've got another one planned for next week. I always want to say who we're gonna have on, but I'm afraid that I'm gonna jinx it. But let's
we hope for the best,
yeah.
and we produce as best we can, but you never know.
Let's just say it's gonna be about fly fishing.
Yeah, I'm actually super pumped about the next guest we have.
You more than me. I don't know shit about
Because
fly fishing.
he has books out, and I bought a couple.
Oh, nice.
And he's very well known in BC. So yeah,
Sweet.
all you fly fishers out there are going to be stoked about that episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to learn some stuff. I got to do some research before we do that one, or I'll just let you do.
We just got to get your fly rod out, and we got to do some fly fishing.
Yeah, I know.
This year.
I've got everything, so we're good to go.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah, Cal, we've got a whack of emails, too many to go over, so we'll choose a few. But as everybody knows, and I'm sure it drives them nuts, that's Oscar. Ratings and reviews and subscribing to the podcast in iTunes makes a huge difference. So for those that do it, we like to mention who they are. So we had some new ones in Canada. Scrammer 32, Cynical Cyclist, Saskatchewan Hunter, Whitefish 76, and Ladykilla 17.
And I get the U.S. list
because it's terrible.
because I can't pronounce any of the names. Bede 32, that one's easy. I'll get the easy ones done first.
Sure.
Ross Grace.
Yeah.
And then we got Wasatchum and Query UGDDC.
Nice. Thanks for the reviews, guys. We appreciate it. We do read them. and we do appreciate them. So thanks a lot. You know what's hilarious, Cal? We always we don't ignore any constructive criticism or anything like that. So I don't know if you're on Reddit at all, but that's kind of like when I'm winding down at the end of the night, I'll scroll through Reddit, and it's just like I've kind of got my random feed that's just like all the top stuff that's on Reddit, and also the only thing I've subscribed to is like the hunting thread. So there's not a whole lot of action in there, but things do come up on there. And so I'm scrolling through and I see favorite hunting podcasts. I'm like, okay, let's check this out. And the guy who started the thread actually mentioned us. So I thought, okay, that's kind of cool. And somebody else commented that they like the show, but we sound like Canadian NPR hosts.
And he needs to drink coffee before.
Exactly. So we're trying to make these more energetic. Kelly and I are both sort of like monotone and like pretty easygoing. So we'll do our best to put some more energy into these ones. I don't know who the guy was, but it gave me a good laugh. So
I actually don't mind that too much because I'm a fan of NPR.
Yeah, me too.
But and podcasts in general, I find I listen to podcasts more than I watch TV by far.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Specifically, I don't know. I've been listening to like NPR, but also like there's some podcasts. Pod Save America is another one.
Yeah,
I kind of feel like that's the rookie hunter of politics.
Nice.
Even though they have worked in the White House, they're younger guys,
Oh, wow.
and they're just trying to like sift through all the bullshit basically.
Yeah.
And I just find listening to stuff like that is more productive and allows me to form an opinion rather than listening to Fox News or CNN or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It feels like they're driving an opinion, whereas if you're listening to people podcasting, you can kind of get a sense of both sides of the world, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my rant on podcasts.
Nice. Yeah. Anyways, we're not trained radio hosts by any means, so hopefully we're improving. But anyways, even if it's good or bad, I appreciate feedback is what I'm getting at. So
For sure.
that made me laugh. Do you want to go through some emails while we got a bit of time here?
Sure.
Okay. This one's from Jeremy. And the thing is, I'm never really sure where people are at as far as how far into the podcast they are, if they're starting with new ones or old ones. But Jeremy was asking us about black bear and he's talking about field dressing and butchering. If there's anything different he should keep in mind or be aware of. He also wants to tan the hide, butcher and eat all the meat. So we've covered this, like we've touched on the topic from time to time. Never really went into detail too much on it. Any thoughts on that one, Cal? Because we talked about like springtime and even early fall hunts. You're dealing with Oscars.
I'm laughing because I'm going to be completely honest. I was reading my email and I didn't listen to what you were saying.
Nice. Wondering why you're laughing. Black bears, field dressing, butchering, and tanning hides.
Right.
So I was just saying that Jesus, pay attention, man.
Well, we haven't got one.
We've touched on it. So we don't have experience doing it. Things to keep in mind are obviously temperature that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
If it's hot, you want to get that hide off there and all the fat as fast as you possibly can.
Yeah. One of the articles I read online was good because it said basically compare it to a jug of milk.
Yeah, I like that.
Sitting outside, right?
Analogy, yeah.
So obviously it depends on the temperature, but I would imagine you want to get those things skinned and potentially deboned quickly.
Yeah. Some of the advice that we've read before is to find a creek. And if you're in the backcountry, usually there's a bridge going over it. If you can hang up the meat in like a creek valley, there's going to be cool wind coming through there and it's going to cool down the meat faster. But speed is your friend in this situation and just try and get it out there as fast as you can. When we were going out last fall, we had a really warm fall and we would always bring coolers with blocks of ice because it was like sweltering hot. So just for the reason that if we got something, we wanted to get it on those blocks of ice as fast as possible.
Yep.
Avoid meat coming in contact with the water if it starts to melt. Something to keep in mind because you can wreck it that way. As far as going like tanning the hide, do you know much about that? I know we looked into it when we were talking about doing the mountain goat.
No, I know you should probably pack around some salt, right? So once you get it all cleaned, you want to get as much of the tissue off the back of that hide as you can, and then I think you want to dump a bunch of salt on it, and you can wrap it up, and
Yeah.
you throw it in the freezer when you get home or whatever the case.
Yep.
That's about all I know about that one.
Okay. Yeah, hopefully we get a bear and we can follow up more on that one. But like anything, man, I think once you get into it, these things sort of, you'll figure it out as you go along. So just
You
look
really
up-
have no choice.
Yeah. Steve Rinella's book, I'm sure it goes over it. The Guide to Hunting Big Game, should be some stuff in there. Anytime we go out and we're unsure of something, we do as much research the night before. I'm comfortable with deer and elk and everything like that. But when we go out for bear, I'm going to be reading lots of stuff like every time before we go out. That's just how I like to do it. So it's fresh in my mind about how we're going to tackle something. So there's that. What do you got?
I have an email from Andy, who is an Australian living in Whistler. It's his third year of hunting. He won a grizzly bear LEH for the spring, so that's coming up. He had an LEH for moose last year and was successful. And he had 3 black-tailed deer. So, I mean, so far it's a success.
Yeah.
Maybe he should have the podcast, but
Yeah.
yeah, basically it's good to hear from folks that are, a few years into hunting, and especially ones that are having some success.
Yeah.
I think in terms of guests on the show, so far we're definitely getting busier with all of this, and that's great. I think it's a matter of time for us, and if you have stories, we had I can't remember what episode it was, but we opened it up for people to send in submissions, and we could potentially play those stories online.
Yeah.
So I would recommend people to do that as a first step.
Yeah, for sure. All you have to do is record a voice memo. I can't remember what episode that was, but just find a quiet room and record a voice memo. We'll play it. We'll gladly share some of those hunting stories because the one that we had was great. And,
yeah, that was good.
So if anybody wants to share a hunting story, please don't be shy. We're getting so busy with this thing now, it's going to be hard to just bring in rookie hunters unless they're like people we're close to.
Yep.
But if you're willing to sit down, record your hunting story, we can even edit it for you if you need us to. But just put the thing down, send it to us, and we'll include it at the end of a podcast episode. Because we both love hearing that stuff. So don't be shy, do it.
We'll make it sound good.
We will, yeah, for sure.
I got another one here from Chris, who's asking about bow hunting, but he doesn't know where to start. And for that one, this has come up a couple times. Mike and I aren't necessarily full-blown bow hunters by any means, but visit your pro shop, local pro shop. They'll get you started. They'll teach you how to shoot a compound.
Yeah.
Within the first day or so, you should be able to hit the target pretty well.
Yeah.
With a compound. So
avoid like your big box hunting stores. If you're looking at a bow, go to your like mom and pop shop, like pro shop. They're local guys. They're going to give you good advice.
Yeah.
You don't have to be pressured into buying something, but they're going to, help you find something that's going to work for you and work with your budget. You don't need to spend a ton of money, but you also don't want to go with the cheapest bow either. Get something that's going to last you and find some success for you.
Yeah. And they'll typically set you up with your draw length. They will give you the, 10 steps of a successful bow shot and teach you. They'll give you a free lesson usually. If they don't, I'd probably negotiate that one. But
yeah, for sure.
I'd start there.
They should. We'll go through a couple more quickly. I think he's going to be calling within the next couple minutes here. Cal, this one is regarding license fees. We've touched on this subject briefly. We're going to talk to this about Jesse Zeman in the next couple of weeks here. But you and I were talking about increasing the cost of license fees in British Columbia. He had some concerns as far as like would it discourage people from spending more? Like would they just focus on a couple of tags? Because like a lot of people just have backup tags as far as like getting a black bear or anything like that, just to have it, just in case. So his thought was maybe it would discourage those extra costs that people might be putting in. But I think the main point is that you and I and a lot of other people want to see 100% of those licensing fees going back into conservation and fish and wildlife and all that. So
For sure.
he's got some good points here. I'm going to set this email aside, and we'll come back to that one with Jesse.
There is a petition going around from BC Wildlife Federation that is basically petitioning for all the money from hunting licenses to go back into the Habitat Trust Fund.
Yeah,
So you can go out to the BC Wildlife Federation website and sign up for that. It's just basically your name and your email, and that's it.
cool. Looks like he's calling. Aaron,
Yes, sir.
how you doing?
I'm good.
Good. We're just pouring ourselves a beer here and getting into the swing of things.
That's good.
Yeah.
Hey, Aaron.
How you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
Good, good. Oh, so we don't have to do video. We can just do audio.
Yeah, that works for us.
That means I can chew.
Chew,
That's awesome.
chew away. Perfect. So where are you at right now?
Colorado, the west side of Denver, kind of by Golden.
Nice. Are you doing training camps or something right now?
Yeah, it's kind of an informal training camp, although it's getting to be a lot more formal, a lot bigger.
Perfect. Yeah, it looks like it. So what are you guys doing for as far as that goes?
I just hike the shit out of them.
Nice.
Put a pack on and haul. But we do anywhere from like 4 to 6 mile loops to just like 1,000-foot climbs in a mile.
Wow.
Or about it's pretty steep. So.
Sweet. Just throw some sandbags in.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Well, I kind of hinted at what we wanted to talk about. So what Kelly and I are planning with 2 other guys is a 7-day backpacking trip in northern BC. So I don't know how much you know about Kelly and I, but we're still fairly new to hunting. So this is going to be like our first big backpacking trip. So some of the stuff we want to go over is just some tips and advice from you as far as how we should prepare and gear and stuff that we'd be looking at. So that sound all right to you?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, you seem like the perfect guest for this. So we're happy to have you.
Definitely appreciate you coming on. I think one thing Mike and I have learned is the hunting community is actually pretty small once you start meeting a couple guys. So it's for us with no real mentors, it's nice to talk to folks like yourself.
Yeah, it's handy. I didn't have one, and the learning curve is shitty.
It is, yeah.
A lot of money spent and mistakes made for sure.
So we had Jeff Lander from Primitive on here a couple weeks ago, and he was telling us all about all good things. Have you got any trips planned with him this year?
Yeah, we're doing. I'm actually going up in a couple weeks for a month. Well, when March, April. Let's see. April 25th, I go up there for grizzly and black bear, and
nice.
then I go. I think I'm going with the Lancasters for a mountain goat, but I've got a couple extra tags with them. But then I may do a float trip with Lander for moose, and then I'm going to Alberta with them again as well
For mule deer?
for mule deer.
All right, so we figure there's probably a lot of our listeners are guys who are in similar situations as we are, as far as getting into it late in the game. And we're finding out, like Kelly and I are in our early 30s here, but we're also hearing from guys that are like in their late 40s and even in their 50s who are just getting into this whole thing. But we figure a lot of guys are probably starting to plan for their 2017 fall hunts. So, for anybody who's doing extended backcountry trips, as far as it being March right now, what do you think guys should be doing to prepare?
Physically, obviously, you want to get ready. If you're doing the backpack hunt, especially on a difficult one, you want to be ready physically, which that doesn't come overnight. You can buy gear overnight and usually get it right if you ask the right people. But the physical fitness aspect, you gotta earn that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the area, you want to make sure, and I've only hunted up there. Obviously, I can only hunt with guides in BC, but it's the same as down here. You want to make sure you have good intel or viable intel on where you're going in hopes to increase your chances. So scouting, whether that be on foot or Google Earth or through friends or forums or whatever. And then dialing your gear down. A lot of times, I wouldn't say almost every time, your first trip out, you pack way too much crap.
Exactly.
And paring that down, quite a bit is depending. Obviously, I always tell people to call me, and I'm hard to get a hold of because I get too many phone calls. But I can usually cut off of most guys' first year 10 to 20 pounds off their pack weight initially, just because you only know what you know, and it's your first time, you don't know shit, so you're packing everything. So
yeah, you don't want to be unprepared. So
yeah, especially going up to a place like northern BC, even for us, like I can see there's tendency to lean to packing heavy.
Yeah,
it's dangerous up there.
Yeah, it's awkward for me to say too much because it's not like I'm an expert, northern BC hunter. I've been in the territories a good bit, and obviously the Rockies, but it's not like I've hunted northern BC. I would imagine some of the same things we have to deal with here. The weather comes in, at 12, 13,000 feet, comes in fast, and gets extremely cold, obviously, which is another problem. High winds at times, lightning, we get it all. I'm sure you guys too. And when you look at that, it's extremely intimidating if you've never done it. And so anytime you're scared of anything in backpack hunting, I found the pack gets heavier. Right. People just keep throwing stuff in.
So you mentioned like trimming weight. What are some of the main things you usually tell people to ditch right off the top?
It obviously depends on where you're going. If you're going into a wetter climate, you don't want to ditch rain gear. If you're going to, hunt in Colorado, you may not ditch rain gear, but you can certainly run a lighter weight rain gear where, in that lowland and like where in Jeff's area in BC, it's pretty thick. You'll destroy lightweight rain gear. Right. But, to answer your question, one of the big clothing, I pack one extra pair of socks and one extra set of underwear for let's say a 10-day hunt. My packing list from a 3-day hunt to a 12-day hunt doesn't change other than the amount of food and maybe the fuel canisters, but other than that, it doesn't really change much. So clothing, especially with the technical clothing we have today, you can get away with, wearing the set of pants you have on the way in. You don't really need another set. I generally don't ever bring one. They dry so fast, things like that. It's not as important. A puffy jacket. A good like insulating puffy jacket or insulated jacket, worth its weight in gold. They weigh a pound maybe and are equivalent to 2 or 3 other layers. So things like that, you don't have to go too crazy on clothing. Food, it's kind of hit or miss. Some guys pack too much, some guys pack too little. But dialing in your food is a huge one. And then doubling up on gear is a big one. If you're going in buddy teams, there's a lot of times you don't need to double up on certain gear. Fuel canisters or white gas, whatever you use, that can kind of bite you in the butt if you're not cognizant of how much you're going to use and then add a little. I don't ever plan it to the day like some guys. I'm not that much like an ultralight weight weenie, but I definitely plan. I know how many boils I can get out of a fuel canister. I know how often I heat my tent up with it, which you're not supposed to do.
Right.
And then I add some. So I'm always safe I got a buffer, especially if I want to end up staying a day or two extra. I don't want to have to come out because I'm bare necessities on everything.
Right. Yeah, that's when it comes to fuel, that's the one thing that I've always been concerned about too, is just how far can I go on one. So what do you find you can typically get out of one canister? And what size would you be dealing with?
What stove are you using?
So the one I have is the Soto. It's the micro regulator stove, which I think uses the same gas as yours, Kel. So
I'm using a jet boil.
There's going to be 4 of us, so I think we're going to have at least a couple.
At least a couple, yeah.
Between the 4 of us.
The one thing I would suggest with that is get on the same game plan as far as if you're running white gas, all of you run white gas. If you're running canisters, everybody run a canister. Right. Because let's say the white stove, the gas goes, your white stove goes down. It is down because when I say goes down, meaning fuel or something happens, you're not going to be able to borrow the other guy's canister and make it work unless it's a multi-fuel stove, and that's if you brought all the pissers to change out and everything in it. So, bringing the same canister stoves is a big one.
Yeah, that's a good tip right there.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing too, they have the little 4-ounce ones, and then they have the 8-ounce. I think they have the small ones and the big ones. If you've got 4 guys and you're going, sounds like how many days?
7, and it's going to be a rifle hunt.
Mm-hmm. So 7, and 7 isn't horrible. Again, I don't suggest, even though I do it, I heat my stove up in the morning when I'm cold with my stove. I use a MSR reactor, which is probably the most bomb-proof I've ever seen. And then I also use a Soto Windmaster, which is a fairly inexpensive stove. And then I have titanium cookset from Evernew.
Okay.
But the moral of the story is 1 stove per 2 guys, I think, is realistic, because you're probably going to have 2 shelters, maybe 4, but 2 shelters, share tents.
Yeah.
1 per stove. That way you're both laying beside each other, cooking meals in the morning or at night.
Right.
So that way, guys aren't coming back and forth from the shelters. So for me, to be safe, each of you carry a canister. That's 2 canisters, 1 per person of the 4-ounce, the small ones. That will easily get you done for 7 days.
Perfect.
Adds a buffer in there. Again, I'm a weenie. I heat my hands up all the time with my stove. And I always err to the side of caution when it comes to losing my feeling of my fingers and eating. I like to eat. And
Right.
so I'll always carry more fuel than I probably need just to be safe. It's never hurt me, and it's not that much heavier. So that's something to think about, especially if you have to boil water. Now, in your neck of the woods where you're going, I'm not overly familiar with it, but there's an abundance of water.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're at, there's not abundance of water at 12,000 feet. A lot of times you're melting snow. That's another variable in the equation. You just went from, a fuel canister for 5 days to doubling that easily if you're melting your snow, if not more. So there's all kinds of things like that to think about.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that one?
I always seem to lose a spoon. Inevitably, it's a $20 titanium one. The cheap ones I never lose. So I always suggest to at least one guy bring an extra spoon. I just buy the cheap ones now. They're like $1.99, little plastic jobbies. As far as weird as it is, I always have it's basically like a ferro rod. It's not a true flint and steel, but it's a magnesium striker. Some of the more technical savvy guys yell at me because I call it a flint and steel, and they get all Twitter pated. But it basically is a piece of metal that you strike on a magnesium little stick, and spark comes out.
Mm-hmm.
That is handy to have in emergency situations. Bic lighters, believe it or not, last real, for a 99-cent lighter or whatever they are. They last for a long time. They do pretty well at elevation. But when in doubt, if your igniter goes out or you don't have one on your stove, that striker will always get it going. And so I usually suggest for, the Bic lighter thing for both parties, but also a striker for both parties. I get a really small one that doesn't weigh hardly anything, just in case, to get the stove going.
Perfect.
Okay. So where we're going, like you said, there's probably an abundance of water, but I don't think there's going to be an abundance of trees.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of shelters, that's one of the things we're kind of having a dilemma about right now is, we don't have maybe the resources to go out and buy 2 or 3 different shelters for every situation. I know.
I'm a huge fan of Hilleberg. You guys in Canada get crushed on duties or whatever it is for Hilleberg shelters. You can get a pretty good beefy 3-season shelter that'll last through just about anything with today's technology. So if it were me, I would just get 2 of the best shelters you can for each party. I wouldn't worry. There's not a lot of trees and there's high wind. I wouldn't worry about the weight as much with 2 guys as I would one guy. When you're packing your own in, it's a bit more of a ball, bag of snakes. When you got 2 guys and you can split the vestibule and the pole, or the tent and the poles, or whatever, even the heaviest shelter, like a heavy a heavy 2-man Hilleberg with a big vestibule, you're still only going to be about 3.5 pounds each, which isn't great, but it's not horrible.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
And that's another thing where you're talking about lightening your load. Just, one guy, let's say one guy takes the spotter and one guy takes the tent. Usually your spotter and your tent relatively close, especially when you include the tripod. Nobody's getting screwed packed going in. And so you kind of want to distribute the weight like that.
Okay. The challenge with us is, I'd say 95% of the places we're hunting is full of trees. So we tend to lean to like a stove option, that we could either use a stove or not. But with this hunt in particular, that's where the Hilleberg and that type of idea started creeping into our heads. But sometimes it's just hard to find the one solution that's perfect.
There's not one, and believe me, I'm in a position I get to design this stuff. Right. There is not when you start including multiple guys. I feel you can get one that does you pretty well with one guy. Like in my case, that would be, of course, I work for Kafaro, biased opinion, a super tarp with a stove. Mm-hmm. But fitting 2 guys in there, you can do it, but it's Brokeback Mountain style. It's tight. Especially with gear, and I am not the cleanliness of people. I scatter shit everywhere. And so I bounce back and forth pretty heavily between Hillebergs and Kafaru because of what you're talking about. When there's no trees and it's in extreme conditions, a Hilleberg is a better bet. The 4-season shelters retain heat inside, especially with 2 guys breathing in there, which is a big one. Mm-hmm. Obviously, high wind, it works very well. The stove is the game changer. When you're on that wood stove, it's life altering. It just makes everything a better place. But if it were me, the best bet's to get a good Hilleberg 2-man shelter and get that. If that caters to this specific hunt and you guys have decent jobs, it's not like I'm inherently wealthy, right? I used to work construction, hanging out of a building, and then save up. And then your next year, especially if you're super tight-knit group, right, you're really close friends, then you dive in on the heated shelter. And that way, yeah, you took a black eye 2 years in a row, but you've got shelters that can handle anything from, the Northwest Territory moose hunts to, 12, 13,000 foot hunts in Colorado for sheep. You can do whatever you need.
Right. So those 4-season tents, I guess once you climb in there, it warms up pretty. So I guess what I'm getting at here is, in the worst conditions, that option is probably your safest bet to cover. You don't have the variables as to whether or not your stove's going to work. If that stove doesn't work, then you're sitting in a floorless tent, right? Not a good situation.
Say that one more time. I want to make sure I understood you.
I'm just thinking about the 2 options. I'm thinking that the 4-season tent, even though it might be a little more uncomfortable in certain situations, it's probably the safest bet because it's more consistent. Whereas with a floorless tent, like a sawtooth or something like that, you're kind of dependent on whether or not you have the wood and the stove and you can start a fire, and if you get super high winds and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it depends. I see what you're saying. If you're going to be above tree line, this is heavily dependent, because if you were in Western Washington, I'd be arguing with you. And it depends. And I hate when guys, I want to make sure I get this out right so people understand. If you're going to be above tree line way more than in the trees, what you said is 100% correct. Okay. You reverse that and you're in trees more, it's exact opposite. The floorless heated shelter is by far better. But again, the safer bet is the more comfortable bet, in the sense of, if you're in a lot of guys I know never go above tree line. Mm-hmm. And so not packing, especially with a buddy team, not packing the stove floorless combo doesn't really make any sense, especially on later rifle hunts. Again, you go up above tree line, you have no wood. Hilleberg's a better bet, because you obviously percentages, right? If you're 7% above tree line, you're going to be better off with a 4-season. And that's exactly the kind of questions I get constantly. And I really try to pin guys down. And sometimes they hem and haw about hopes and dreams of what they might do. And it's like I really got to pin them down on what they are doing to get them the right answer, because I don't want anybody to buy anything they don't need.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I guess that's the tricky part, is that there's so much terrain in BC, so there's no one tent basically for what Kelly and I are going to be getting into.
No.
Is a tricky part. When we had Jeff Lander in a couple weeks ago, he said that you had a little trick, which was bringing in those fire logs and just cutting them up into thirds and packing those in.
Oh, dude, it's money. He did it too. I mean, it's amazing when you don't like being cold, the kind of shit you figure out, right?
Yeah.
I just take a bandsaw and I cut them in half or quarters.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't. Keep in mind, before everybody starts packing these things in, I will do this if, let's say, you called me and I'm in an unknown situation, and you're like, we're going in 6 miles. We'll be going through timber, but we're going to crest at about 4 miles in, whatever the case may be. Then we're going to be above tree line. We may bounce back and forth into the trees. It's going to be super cold, whatever. 6 miles isn't that far. Splitting up amongst 2 guys, a couple extra fire logs, although you're taking a black eye on weight.
Yeah.
Through the night, half of a fire log or one of those, whatever you would, Duralogs, burns pretty well, and I'll pack them in because I like to be warm. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, the same can be said packing an extra fuel canister in the spirit of full candor with the Hilleberg. If you're just looking for heat, you can burn that in a 4-season Hilleberg, which you are not supposed to do, and I'm not telling anyone to do it, but you can burn them like a MSR reactor and get it warm enough in there to where you're generally comfortable. You don't leave it burning all night, right? I just use it a little bit to heat up the tent. Having said that, if I need to dry my clothes, you are not going to dry them with an isobutane, like a canister type stove. It's a wet burn. Mm-hmm. Well, so if I got to dry my clothes off, that's when the Duralog comes into play. Or if there's some, let's say you have bristlecomb or those shitty willows that are a pain to burn up high, the Duralog will dry those enough and get them going. So it takes you into a situation where normally can't burn wood. It's enough to dry out plenty of wood. You got to be, diligent about getting everything dry and not half-assed it. You want to make sure you're paying attention when you burn on the Duralog to keep that fire going and dry out your kit or your gear.
Right.
Good point. Something we're going to have to consider too. I think probably the best thing for us to do, and we've already started doing it, is looking at Google Earth and just trying to find out possible camp locations, see if we can get an idea of what's going to be there as far as fuel for wood and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then make a choice on a tent. It's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. But, the other thing with the open shelter is the bugs.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah, mosquitoes. And how does the mosquito liner, say in a Kafaru?
Man, it kind of works.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's not something I'm like, oh yeah, buy it. Great. It does an okay job. Yeah. The thing is, you're talking about 2 different variables here, and this is where you're really picking through the weeds. If you're talking about bugs, you are not talking about extreme cold conditions or even cold conditions.
That's true.
So this is where I talk about picking through the weeds with guys. When they ask about bugs and they ask about a stove, I'm like, hey, you're talking about 2 different things here. If it's cold enough for me to run a stove, bugs are a non-issue.
Right.
If bugs are an issue, bring a 3-season tent that is a proven 3-season tent in high wind. Because then you're saving the weight. You got a bug net. You're not worried about the cold because it's not freezing. And again, I get to go hunt in all kinds of goofy places that I've never been. And when I know where I'm going, the gear list is super simple. I mean, I pack the night before because I'm a procrastinator and I half-ass everything in life to the last minute with stuff like that. When I don't know where I'm going, that's when I assess the situation. I look at where I'm going, how many days, predicted weather forecasts, the general what ifs that happen in that potential region, those things, weather, trees, all that stuff. I can figure that out off Google Earth and a quick search. Even backpackers talk about it. You can go, if Colorado, there's backpackers everywhere. You can get enough info there to where you should have no issues from that alone without talking to anyone, just reading what you're going to need to bring. So if you look at the region or your area you're hunting, You're going to be above tree line, expected temps above tree line, which you should be able to figure out, or let's say, 28 to 55 for your hunt. Right there, generally bugs are probably going to die. You may have a little bit that. I'd say bugs are a non-issue. It's going to be freezing. They're going to die at night.
Mm-hmm.
You could get away if you're tough and don't mind the cold with a 3-season tent if there's no high winds. If there is high winds, you may want to beef up the shelter a little bit, and those are all the things you kind of want to pick through the weeds with. But the end result or the end goal is to save weight. If weight wasn't an issue, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You always want to get the lightest possible option you can.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're young, dumb, and tough, you just suck it up and carry some heavy crap in and you're good. But if you're really trying to save weight, that's when, again, kind of going through the weeds with it, where you really got to dig deep, figure out what exactly you're going to need. That probably just confused you even more, but
okay.
No, it makes sense. But on the other hand, I think we're fit enough to bring a little bit more than we need, but you also have to pack all that shit out too. So something to consider, especially if we're packing out an animal as well. The lighter you can be when you come out is going to make a big difference. So
you kill 4 sheep, you guys are going to be up shit creek without a pack.
Or God forbid, a moose. There's a lot open. What's open?
Oh, that'll.
I think so. We've got caribou. These are all over the counter with area restrictions, obviously. But caribou, mountain goat, moose. What was the other one? Grizzly
bear.
Yeah, that's LEH, though. We're all going to apply just in case. You never know what's going to happen. I'd rather have a tag in my pocket.
Yeah, there's sheep up there. Pretty much everything you can imagine. Yeah. So
I can tell you right now, I wouldn't kill a moose too far back in, or you're going to be in trouble. Not telling you what to do, but most people shoot moose right off the landing strip or not too far away from it.
Yeah.
You're 6 to 8 miles in and you kill a moose. I want you to make sure and write a story about that and let me know when it happens. I want to hear the details.
Well,
nice.
you and Callahan shot one recently, didn't you?
Cal shot one, yeah.
Oh, okay. Was that a back end or a backpack?
No, it still sucked. It was close to the road. It was only like a mile and a half in.
Yeah.
It's probably a mile and a half. He shot it on the other side of a river, which we thought was an oxbow. Quite honestly, there wasn't a lot of communication between he and I when it came in, but we had to go get a good hike back out driving to town, go get a kid's raft. It was the only raft we could find in this town, and then go across and pull all the meat across. It was a late night. But an example of that, and I can carry more than just about anybody I know as far as weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the way out, Cal got literally stuck. And if you know Cal, he's not exactly an aggressive individual, right? He's a pretty mild-mannered dude.
Yeah.
I head up the hill, get to the top, and I'm with the other guy. And I can hear a lot of things that I've never heard come out of Cal's mouth in violence with, like, shit that make a sailor blush.
Yeah.
Like, So I get my pack off. Well, Cal, when he was trying to cross through these, anyway, he got buried in the mud. And when I say buried, 120-pound pack, whatever it was, into basically a sinkhole, belly button deep, and was stuck, right? Like stuck. Like he didn't have anything. So they're trying to get the pack off, get out of the mud and everything else. We got all that taken care of. We gunned it to the truck, and the guy that was with us made a call to not go back to get the rest of it that night. I was not overly thrilled with that decision, to be honest with you. Just for the simple fact that I'm one of those guys that just wants to get it over with.
Yep.
But at a mile and a half, it still sucked, and it was a relatively easy mile and a half minus the thick brush. So I've packed moose out. Man, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever packed moose out over a mile and a half, 2 miles. So, I'm pretty stupid when it comes to doing dumb stuff to tell a cool story at the end of it. I can't imagine anyone I know without horses packing one out 6 miles or something like that. It would kill them.
Yeah.
See, that's good. That's what I was thinking. I know there's a couple guys in our party that are looking forward to the moose, and I'm a little nervous about that one.
Run the numbers, man. 30%, you'll yield. You'll take home 30% of the gross animal weight in meat. So if it's 1,000-pound animal, you're at 300 to, it's roughly 30%, 300 pounds of meat. Moose is more than that. So let's say, hypothetically, you've got 120 pounds each, add the gear, 45 pound, let's say that's 165 pounds each if you do it in one shot. And these are figuring low.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you could make it, you're a one and done trip. You shot one moose, one guy, one trip out, 7 days blown.
Yep.
So those are the things and believe me, it's not like we haven't downed too many elk before, kind of like, whoa, wow, that was cool. And the next thing you know, we got 3 elk down 6 miles in, using fingers and toes, figuring out real quick, this is going to suck for the next 4 days getting them out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the thing. When the opportunity's there, you kind of don't think about the repercussions of what's going to happen after. Yeah. Because sometimes it's rare that you get those opportunities. But yeah, you got to think about, how realistic it is to actually get the animal out and not spoil any meat or waste anything. So,
how far are you guys thinking of going in?
Well, we need to go in quite a ways. We're thinking it's probably going to be a full day's hike in, just to set up camp, anywhere from 15 to 20 kilometers or something like that. So we're sort of trying to come up with a strategy, depending on what we're coming out of there with. If we move our camp halfway between where we're set up and where the truck is, and kind of do it in a couple of days and make trips back and forth, or it really just depends. It's kind of just speculating at this point, but we're going a ways in for sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'll be an interesting deal. I'm chuckling inside to hear the story in the end. I mean, it all depends too on how tough your guys are. I mean, we're in the land of the wolf where I'm at, so I've got, when I say that, meaning we train like madmen. Like Frank, he's like my head guy at Kafaru. 9 miles in, shot a mule deer, solo 10-day hunt, packed it all out himself, drove back home, and made it back to work on Monday.
Wow.
And he's mild mannered. You can't, he wouldn't say shit if he had a mouth full of it. Dude's harder than woodpecker lips, right?
Right.
Colton and I with his bull, that was a 7-8 mile ordeal with, pushing that 170, 180 pound mark. So I know what I can count on with the guys I hunt with. And again, you can stay the night, you can lengthen it out. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah.
But you definitely don't want to find out in the middle of a hunt the guy's going to give up on you and become a liability instead of an asset.
Exactly, yeah. And these guys we've hunted with before, and we're confident in everybody's ability. And some of the discussions that we're having already are around fitness and just being like as prepared as possible, because we all have to rely on each other. If something goes wrong, and if even if we come out with a few animals, everybody's got to pull their weight. So very important that we're all on the same page. But I think we feel pretty good about the group of guys we have with. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good if you got 4 fit guys or 4, hard-headed guys one way or another, whether you're fit or not. If you're stupid, that makes up for a lot of fitness.
True. Stubborn,
yeah. Yeah, stubborn and stupid's a fine line between those two, because often stubborn, stupid, it's the same thing as I'm going through misery packing out an animal.
Exactly. Well, part of that too is we have to rely on each other's gear too. So a lot of us are upgrading our gear, and one of the things, like Garrett bought a new pack recently. Mm-hmm. What do you rate packs in terms of gear overall? The importance of a good pack on a trip like that.
For backpack hunting, at the top, just because you got to wear it every day, right? Mm-hmm. You got to wear it in, you got to wear it out. But boots are important, pack is important, shelter is important. After that, it starts, arguable what's more important. For me, I'm able to do do consecutive back-to-back hunts because my pack isn't killing me. A lot of sales we get from Kafaru are of guys that had a pack that served them well for 3 or 4 years, and then they killed an animal and they packed it out, and at that point they'll spend any amount of money to be in comfort. So to me, boots and packs are right up there at the top.
Right. I'm going to ask you a question you probably get daily, but with the Kafaru packs and the frames, 24-inch versus 26-inch frames.
Just depends on your body, your height, and your torso, your inseam. So give me your stats, and I'll tell you what you would need.
So it's 5'11". I think my torso is about 19 inches.
So your inseam's about 32 inches on your pants.
Yep.
Yeah. So you could go with a 24 or a 26. If you're one of those all go no quit dudes that can carry, the earth, I'd say 26. If you're an area that you hunt a lot of overhead, like Western Washington, logging areas, deadfall areas, some guys will cater down to stick more to a 24 inch. Okay. With 24 inch, after about 120 pounds or so, it starts to sag more, where a 26 inch will get you the shoulder lift you need. Okay. So you're right in the middle. You add an inch or take away an inch either way, it makes the decision pretty cut and dry. You go down to an 18 inch torso, you're a 24. You go to a 20 inch torso, you're a 26.
Okay. I wouldn't call myself a super solid 5'11". I'm a little on the lean side, so I don't think I'd be packing much more than 120 pounds anyways. So
yeah, probably 24 would do well. And then, obviously in our case, the belts are made to your belt, your waist size and things like that. Yeah. The big thing you got to look at, whatever pack you buy, is the durability, the fit, the comfort. Those are the big ones. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult to weed through the crap that you see online, because there's a lot of guys that promote certain things that haven't maybe tested them like they could. Or if I get in my girlfriend's car and my girlfriend's 5'4", that doesn't mean I need to throw the car away or it's a bad car because I don't fit in it. I just need to adjust the seat back. Mm-hmm. Packs are the same way. Like when we send out a pack, they're custom fit to that specific person. They can be altered and moved and adjusted. If the pack you buy has those options, then more than most likely you're going to be relatively comfortable. If it's a one-size-fits-all type of a pack, imagine, a guy with a 6 3/4 inch head putting on the hat for a guy that's 7 3/4. He's going to be swimming in it. In reverse, the other guy's eyeballs are going to be popping out because the hat's too tight. A pack is no different.
Yeah, for sure. I think the cool thing nowadays is, as we get more technology and the internet and all that, the market seems to be going more towards, you can access people that have more boutique type shops, and they're creating the quality and they have the customer service that people want, right? So whether it's music or hunting or whatever, it seems people are gravitating more to that than, 20 years ago, where folks just bought the mass-produced stuff.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. What, you guys aren't going to hurt my feelings. What packs are you guys running?
Mike?
I picked up, last year I did a backpacking trip on the West Coast here. It wasn't hunting related, but I ended up picking up a 75-liter Fjall Raven pack, which has been good, and I've been using that for hunting as well. So last year I packed out well over 100 pounds of mule deer meat in that thing.
He did solo mule deer.
Yeah. So I've put it to its limits. It's not, it's a great backpacking pack, but as far as hunting goes, it does have its limits, but it's worked out pretty well so far. I'll probably upgrade at some point and get something, that's just for hunting, and dedicate that more to camping trips and shit like that. But
they're in their pants right now. I love their pants.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Expensive. I mean, their pants are expensive. Probably more expensive than they should be.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I've got some Vita Pros that are, I wear them fishing, hunting, hiking, everything.
That's what I got on now.
You can buy 2 pairs of even 1 pair of those pants, and you pretty much wear them every day for 5 years.
Yeah, I wear them a lot. I get crap about it, actually. But I got a hookup, so I got a discount, or I wouldn't have been able to buy them as many as I did, because you could about have to sell a kidney or a testicle to afford them. But they are nice.
Exactly.
What about you? What pack are you running?
So when I started hunting, I picked up a Badlands Sacrifice, which is more of a lightweight bow hunting pack. It doesn't have any lumbar support.
Yeah, I had one.
Yeah, so I don't know, for a hunt like this coming up, I'm I'm thinking an upgrade has to happen.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
You're definitely going to have to upgrade. Really, like if you're poor, or not poor, but you know what I mean. If you're obviously you guys got a lot of big buying things.
mm-hmm.
You know, the things to look at is an old Dana design, like a terraplane.
Yep.
If you get one of those to fit you, you're good. One of the old Barney Bob's packs, an old, used stuff, basically used
Yep.
Cafaru. The Barney Bob's pack. It's like an Alaskan Legend pack. There's certain things I don't like about it, certain things I do. I don't need that big frame personally. I like the frame that we have as far as how it functions. The belt on that Barney's is a little bit rough for me, but it's, you can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, it's a good option. The Terraplane's a great option. And I mean, if you get a deal on the Fjallraven stuff, that pack's not a horrible option.
Mm-hmm.
The shoulder, you'll rip a shoulder strap off. From what I've seen, is what'll end up happening over time.
Okay.
Those are the kind of things to look for, on that stuff. You can also just call me and I'll dig around the warehouse at Cafaru and see what I can find for you. We got crap laying around everywhere. It may be a second.
Yep.
May have something wrong with it, but not durability wise. It just may be ugly.
Nice. Yeah, I think one of the other guys, Garrett, he's got a Mystery Ranch, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
they make real good packs too. I can't comment on their newer stuff as much. They went overseas on their line, and I haven't used that line. But their old stuff I ran a lot, and that you throw those off a cliff, and they don't break.
Nice. Yeah, we got an elk last year, and he made out pretty well with his pack. We were all looking at him. He was in the front of the line, and we were all jealous the whole way. We had to pack out a couple kilometers. But
yeah, that's where a good pack makes a difference for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Do I know Garrett?
No, he's one of our buddies from the Kootenays there. He's actually related to Mike, so
Gotcha.
Yeah, one of our close hunting partners that seems to be involved in all these hunting and planning that we're doing over the next few years.
Yeah. So last year our elk hunting setup was in a wall tent, which was luxury. So this is going to be, quite the change, but we're all looking forward to it.
Garrett's taken over as the gear guy. He's got a lot of nice stuff.
He does.
Oh yeah, it's always nice to have a gear guy, because you can ask the gear guy what he pissed money away on and it didn't work for him.
Yeah, exactly. Learn from his mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if you're gonna go, get a new pack, I would stay away from. This is my own knowledge. I can't comment on the newer Mystery Ranch stuff, but like Stone Glacier makes a good pack. Obviously, Cafaru, the Barney Bob's is a good pack. The other stuff is just not. It does not do as well for heavy lifting and extreme, long-term durability.
Mm-hmm.
The older Mystery Ranch stuff I can't comment on. It wasn't as comfortable for me as my Cafaru, but it was every bit as durable.
Right.
We make, the old Mystery Ranch and ours, we use the same benders, same buckles, same webbing, same Cordura, same everything. So
right.
We're both very compliant, or we were, so it's the same stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, Jeff came in with a couple of Cafaru packs. What models were those that he had?
He had a Reckoning and a Mountain Warrior, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, just putting those on felt like a pretty big step up from the Fjallraven's great, but it just, when something's a dedicated hunting pack, you feel it right away. It just was comfortable. And
I think it's the frame, right?
Exactly,
Yeah. You put the Badlands Sacrifice on after that, and it's night and day.
Well, those guys, when I say those guys, I mean, when I went in on that grizzly hunt, I eat a lot, and I don't know if he brought that up. He was laughing. My food bag was insane. But that pack allows me to carry more comfortably than most. And so, I went in with 80 pounds without skipping a beat. It didn't bug me at all. And with that moose, I'm pretty certain that load on my first trip out, we did the entire moose, Cape Head, everything in 2 trips. I was about 180 on the way out, and then I packed the head about halfway back with the rack, which I don't know what that had to have been another 50 pounds or something. But that pack allows me to do that. And, I don't keep my packs for more than a year. Obviously, I'm always testing prototypes. So I gave actually a guy. He's from Fort St. John. They call him Wiener. It's a buddy of Clay Lancaster's kid. That pack, and that was like the fifth animal that pack had packed out. And I mean, he was happy to have it. I'm like, I don't know, dude. Look it over. I just beat the shit out of that thing, like with Clay's or with Cal's moose. But yeah, when you spend the money, whether it be from us or someone else, you do get taken care of pretty well, like long term, whether it be warranty or just buying in, like to the you're part of the family. That's one of the reasons I like the position I'm in. I like talking to guys like you guys or general customers as well as guides and outfitters. It's always fun hearing stories and getting people set up.
Yeah, for sure. And Kelly and I get a lot of questions about gear, obviously. And, our advice is always buy something once. It might cost you quite a bit, but, a few years down the road, you're going to have a lot of nice stuff and you're going to have it for a long time rather than just buying a bunch of cheap shit that you have to replace constantly, right? So it's
especially boots.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, man, anything to do with boots and packs that you're using every day, clothing, it's like the guy's like, "Oh, you paid $400 for your boots." I'm like, "Yeah, and I burned through boots like crazy." And guy's like, "I only paid 109 for these," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you bought 4 pair in the last year and a half. That's $400, and $36. So
yeah, and a bad pair of boots can end your hunt in a hurry too.
Yeah, for sure. So it's obviously, money depending if you can afford it or get the best you can afford, like you said, is always, the best bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you get what you pay for nowadays. It's all pretty competitive.
Yeah, it's definitely competitive. Believe me, I have to deal with it on the business side.
Yeah, daily.
Any company doing well today is either doing really good with marketing or is making a real good product. It's one or the other.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
We touched on gear a little bit, but you being someone who gets to try a lot of different stuff, and there's a lot of obvious gear recommendations, but is there a couple of things that you would recommend that some guys might not think about?
Socks is one thing that I'm a big stickler on as far as, I like merino wool socks, darn tough. Fits is another one. And then the compression socks from First Light are really good.
Okay.
Clothing, as weird as it is, not a sales pitch or, I work with Sitka now, but a good piece of clothing is almost like, that your whoopee when you're a kid, your little happy blanket. Finding that one piece of kit in your clothing that you cannot do without, to me, is just like a nice warm blanket, whether it be a puffy or an insulated jacket, whether it be like a intermediate fleece layer with a hood. Find that one thing that gives you confidence that you take with you all the time, whether it be wind blown or whatever, and you throw it on. It's weird. All my buddies are the same way, whether they realize it or not. They have that one piece that's important. A headlamp, there's a bazillion headlamps. Buy a headlamp that's not going to get you cliffed out, meaning it's got a high, like 220 lumens or more, that doesn't suck up batteries like crazy. Test that stuff out, figure out what's going to work the best. For me, my med kit, which is really duct tape, some super glue, Oxycontin, which is hard for you guys to get, some kind of a painkiller. But dial down your med kit to where you're not packing the kitchen sink, but you know how to use what's in it,
right,
and you're comfortable with what you've got. Those are things I think people, they just buy a med kit from, whatever, Amazon or whatever they get it off of. I just kind of put mine together off, Leuco tape. One of the best things in the world that God, the Army, or NASA ever invented is Leuco tape for your feet.
I tried to find some of that last year before our elk hunt. I actually didn't get any, but fortunately I didn't need it. But yeah, that was on my list.
Yeah, it's how the hell do you spell it? Let me I should know. I buy it all the time.
Leuko or something.
I think so. Leuko. Yep, Leuco tape. It'll last on your feet 7 to 10 days before it comes off. In fact, if you peel it off too early and you put it over a blister, it's coming off with it. That Leuco tape is a big one for me. GPS, I use probably this most simplistic GPS known to man. Yeah, it's a Garmin 401. It's a wristwatch type. It's not. It takes AA or AAA batteries, but I'm comfortable with how it works and become familiar with it. That's a big one for, especially if you guys are going in really far.
Yeah.
I'm kind of going through everything, but
No, that's good.
I think I have a 64S. And then for Christmas last year, the family kind of went in on a DeLorme InReach because, that's pretty cool. Actually, you can give everybody your login information and they can log in and see where you are, which is kind of a good option.
Yeah, I have an InReach, and then after I got that InReach, I got an Iridium Go, which is a sat phone that links up to your cell phone, so you can talk to your cell phone through the sat.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Jeff mentioned that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that thing's I actually got the idea from Jeff for that. I already had a sat phone, but the Iridium Go is nice. When the biggest thing, when you like the obvious, how one man shits another man's gold type of a thing. If you are confident in what you have, me or the biggest gear junkie in the world should not deter you from it if you're confident in it. Now, I hate jet boils. Like, as much as I hate mayonnaise, I've had them go down. They're anti-hunting. But a ton of people like jet boils. So I just try to, hey, there's something to think about. And I don't, I try not to steer people away. If you're confident in it, I'd rather you go in confident with a jet boil than not confident in something else. That's a big one. Now, if it's something you've only camped with a couple times, I wouldn't say you're confident in that. That just means it's worked a couple times.
That's more our situation.
Yeah, it's you spend enough time in the woods, burning through gear, you start to find pretty big failures and things real quick. But your purification system, in your case, is you're lucky. You got a lot of water and it's probably not tainted with elk shit, so you can probably drink right out of the creek. But whether it be Aquamira like drops, Aqua Tabs, a Sterapin, a pump, kind of figure that out ahead of time. And in most cases where you guys are going, again, I'm not an expert, but I don't know that a pump is really needed. The Aquamira drops, it's lighter. It's pretty handy. You mix 2 parts together, let it sit, pour it in the water, let it sit for 30 minutes, and you're good to go. Okay. I use Aquamira drops and I use a Sterapin. If I was up there, depending upon where you're at, I highly doubt I would even use a purification system.
Right.
Good. Yeah, Kelly's got the Sawyer Mini. I've got a Catadyne Hiker Pro, which is a bit of a bulkier system, but
I think it's a better system. I just don't know if we need to pack in more than one.
Probably not.
Which, you have the Sawyer, what is it?
It's the Sawyer Mini. It's just a little, it has the straws in it.
That's the hollow fiber. So if that freezes, just remember it's worthless.
It ruins it.
Yeah, that's the only downside to it. Usually, like, I just make sure one guy, he's got the primary, whether that be a pump or whatever the case may be, and then the other guy's got the secondary, which is the drops.
Okay.
That way you're never up literally shit creek, because you've got something to purify the water. Giardia takes 2 weeks generally to set in anyway, so if you're in a survival situation, just drink up, because you're not going to get the shits till you get out anyway, or you're going to die.
It'll hit you when you're at home.
Yeah, exactly. So
nice. That's good to know.
Minus going through my entire gear list, the guys that bring in, multiple pairs of socks, multiple pairs of pants, things like that, those are the guys that usually pare down their gear list to nothing. Where, like, right now, I like Sitka Timberline and Sitka Mountain Pants. Those are the 2 pants I'll wear this year, and probably the Ascent, that they got a new model. But the point being, out of those 3 pants that they make, for example, one of those sets of pants is going to be catered more or less perfectly to the situation I'm going into. It's hot weather. I'm probably going to wear their new Ascent, whatever the case may be. But I'm only bringing 1. I'm not bringing 3. I'm not bringing 2. I'm only bringing the 1. And then let your upper layer. I'm going to have a good base layer. I'm going to have a fleece over that. I'm going to have a puffy jacket and a rain jacket. And that is all I'm bringing. A lot of guys spend the money on the clothing and feel it necessary to put it in the pack when they don't need it, and that really starts to bump up the pack weight.
Right.
You know, ounces make pounds and pounds make pain, and that is pretty cut and dry when it comes to backpacking.
Yeah, this is great. Kevin, our hunting partner, our other hunting partner, is going to love this because we're always busting his balls about having too much gear. And I think we were trying to make our load small last year for the elk hunt, just for the sake that if we were coming home with a lot of meat, then we would have needed the extra space in the truck for, you know.
But he brought a hockey bag full of
I
socks.
think he had about, 20 pairs of socks, 50 pairs of underwear, and he's definitely going to have to pare down. So I think we'll dedicate this episode to him for sure.
Yeah, that's funny. And I guys sometimes when I'm overly blunt get pissed when I say certain things about stuff other people have done, and then they get mad. And it's like, hey, I'm not saying it like I knew from birth not to do it. I'm saying it because I already screwed it up.
Yeah.
And learned the hard way. So, man, my first backpacking trip, I was like, dude, I don't know. I had soap and all kinds of shit. I mean, I just crap. I didn't, I wash my hand every day, and I don't even know what I was thinking. And then now I'm like, did I remember my toothbrush? I don't even, there's all kinds of stuff I don't even bring.
Yeah, for sure. Merino wool base layers is another thing I think we were all wearing now because it's great, just if you have, especially if you got 2 pairs of underwear, they're quick and easy to clean out. If you're worried about having clean underwear, you can, throw those in a creek and dry them out pretty quick. So those kinds of things go a long way as far as
wood stove.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. No, merino base layers are pretty freaking important.
Exactly.
I don't worry about it after the base layer. I usually wear synthetics after that.
Yeah.
But it again, one, you don't stink, which is, good. And then 2, you don't get fungus in your armpits, which some guys are more prone to than others, but long-term stays in the woods without a shower and sweat. And you can get pretty funky and raw under your armpit and your crotch. Mm-hmm. And then your feet, again, taking care of your feet's big. Just because, like, I sleep without my socks on to dry my feet up.
Right.
A lot of guys worry about getting cold and they wear their socks, which is fine, but it makes your feet kind of moist, which softens them up. I try to sleep without my socks on to dry them out to make them tougher. Mm-hmm. And then if you're using a synthetic bag, which I do, I just throw my socks in the bottom of the bag because my body heat dries them out. Mm-hmm. I've had to sleep in my clothes to do the same thing before, but the synthetic sleeping bag, especially in wet areas, is huge for getting your clothes dry, especially if they're just kind of damp. Your body heat will dry them off.
Right. And while you're talking about sleep systems, what do you recommend there? As far as a pad goes, something lightweight that's going to keep you up off the ground, especially for, late September, October hunts, and also a bag.
Ones I've used, the Thermarest X Lite and X Therm. I've had good luck with those. They're not exactly, they are what they are. They're a 2.8-inch thick sleeping pad. I think my X Lite is 11 ounces, and I've slept well below freezing with that thing. The X Therm, I think, is a 5.7 R value. I think it's a 3.7. Don't quote those on the X Lite.
Okay.
But those 2 pads are really good. Cedar Summit makes some excellent. Some of their new pads are excellent. The new Q Core from Big Agnes is good. But I've slept more with an X Lite than any other pad on the market.
Okay.
Good.
Bags, that's a little bit more tricky because you have the down, whether down, hydrophobic down, or synthetic issue or debate. It's hard for me in hunting conditions or rainy conditions or wet to not wear or to not run a synthetic.
Right.
Mostly just because I've gotten burned enough times with down that I just carry the extra 4 or 5 ounces in a synthetic bag. That and when I'm wet, I can dry my clothes off inside. I glass out of it when it's super cold, things like that. It can get soaking wet and still keep me alive. So synthetic has been a big one for me, especially when I'm hanging out on the west side.
Perfect. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is if we're going with a floorless shelter, are you throwing anything else down as far as even just Tyvek or something to keep you off the ground and, sometimes water, especially if you're setting up in the rain, you're dealing with the wet surface right off the bat. So any tips for that?
I just run Tyvek.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yep. Yep. And I mean, I've ordered it on Amazon. I've taken it from job sites, not stealing it, but, I was in construction, buddies work job sites. I don't do anything special. I just cut the pinning like a 4 foot by 7 foot or 4 foot by 8 foot sheet. And that's it. And, I'll use it to put meat on when needed, like cow's moose. That was on my ground cloth. It just worked out that way. So it's super simple. And again, it's relative close to free. So not going to cry if you damage it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay, one more question if you're okay with that.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Okay, cool. So meals. I do not like Mountain House. I know the guys we were with last year brought a few and they were mixed reviews.
I loved it when we were up on
I guess
about 7,500 feet getting slammed by that snowstorm.
Yeah. So when I did the 5-day backpacking trip with my wife on the coast, we made a lot of our stuff ahead of time as far as drying out. We did a lot of pastas and stuff like that, just simple stuff. Is there any meals that you would recommend that you always go out there with?
Yeah, I make my own a lot, but one of the things I've started using recently. I've always eaten Top Ramen and olive oil tuna packets for the last 4 years. It's like the poor man Mountain House.
Nice.
But I've started using recently. I think it's 180 calories and there's 2 servings, and it's gluten-free Top Ramen.
Oh, okay. I think you just posted a photo of that, didn't you?
Yeah, and that with an olive oil tuna packet, which I think the olive oil tuna packet's 190 calories. So you're 360 to 380 for the ramen, and then you're bumping it up 550 calories for dinner. Well, I mean, also what you can do is I'll dehydrate mushrooms and tomatoes and things like that, and I'll throw that in there with it.
Yep.
Sometimes I'll take crackers and I'll throw that in there. If I'm getting 600 calories for dinner, I'm a happy man. Besides that, it's not like I eat ramen and go to bed. I'm usually eating a candy bar of some sort, or a protein bar or something, almonds, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
My food, I've got pretty well dialed down. Now I kind of went gluten free. So I always a gluten free bagel with bacon, almond butter, and honey. That is like 900,000 calories. Ramen I just described. There's these gluten free bars that I also use that are pretty high protein. I think they're 19 grams of protein per bar. They taste really good, which is also important. I make my breakfast cereal, and then I put protein powder. I basically take Mountain Ops Magnum, and I put a scoop of that in for like my dehydrated milk.
Yeah.
And I don't always do that. It depends on the water, how much water I've got. Peanut butter is a big one. Justin's peanut butter packets or Jif or whatever the case may be. Anytime I make my own food, it's heavily covered in olive oil for essential fats. And then I pack all my pills in that I take in the morning. So I take a probiotic in with me. I take a multivitamin, fish oil pills, zinc. I pack all that in. It's not heavy.
Right.
And take those every morning. Mostly too, I like to be regular. I don't want to be plugged up when I'm back there. So I want to make sure I'm, dropping bombs when I'm back in there. You're not going to be Mountain House gives some people the shits. It does not do that for me. So
it's those little things that just ruin a hunt for you, right?
Yeah.
You gotta think about that stuff.
The other thing too is like Mountain Ops Enduro or Emergency or something like that for recovery drink is another good one. You want to electrolyte wise, like Emergency or whatever. Just because you're drinking water, you're not getting electrolytes back in your system, so you want to make sure and replenish those. But it has been a huge one for me for recovery and muscle fatigue.
Right.
Great. Any final recommendations or words of wisdom for any rookie hunters going out there for the first time this year?
As asshole-ish as this sound, you're not going to die. Well, you probably won't die. So I just don't be scared of. I just hear people talk themselves out of so many things. The tougher you are, the farther you can go, and the funner you can have. Don't let fear get in the way of your hunt.
Yeah.
Just get out there. If you can't afford the best boots or the best pack, afford the best you can. because it's better than sitting at home wishing you win. Just get your ass out there and get on the hunt, and make the best decisions you can on gear, as well as while you're out there. Use common sense in every decision you make, and generally, that favors people, and usually get an animal when that happens. Can't kill one when you're sitting on the couch.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent.
Cool.
Beautiful.
I'm looking forward to this year.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting excited.
Yeah, it sounds like you got that's a target-rich environment, for
Definitely.
sure.
We've got quite a few mule deer around the Okanagan as well. So that's kind of our staple is hunting for mule deer, but we've got a couple peripheral trips on the side that we'll be planning, and looking forward to that. I don't know what's going to happen with those ones, but I'm sure something's going to happen and we're going to remember it forever. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll be looking forward to it. And if you guys need gear or whatever, give me a call. You got my cell number, and I'll help you guys out as much as I can.
Perfect.
cool.
Very much appreciated.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, well, let's wrap this up here. You can just hang on the line here for a sec if you want, Aaron. But thank you very much for taking the time to hang out with us for over an hour here. And man, that's a ton of great information for us and for everybody who's listening. So very much appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
No problem. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks.
Yep.
So there it is, Cal.
That's good.
Aaron Snyder. That was awesome.
Yeah, whether you're listening to one of his podcasts from Gritty or whatever, there's always a lot of good information there. It's
Yeah, I was trying to write stuff down as we were talking here,
yeah,
but I'm definitely.
but it's all
have to-
recorded, so you don't
Yeah,
have
I
to
know.
write it down.
So we're gonna have to go back and kind of make some more notes. And I think the same for anybody who's listening. You should probably, if you're driving or something like that, or out running, you might want to go back and write some of that shit down. One of the things he touched on there, and we kind of just breezed over it, was your first aid kit or your medical kit. Actually knowing how to use all the shit that's in there is huge, because it's great to have that, but if you don't know how to use everything in there, then it's pretty much useless.
And we've talked about taking a first aid course and a wilderness first aid as well.
Yeah.
Or whatever if it's one course or the other. But I think that's a good idea. If you're planning on going in a little ways like that, it's better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Hopefully the odds are more in our favor as far as something bad happening or not happening. But if something does happen, like if Jeff's bear attack story on that episode, and the guy being severely injured and then also getting shot in the process.
Yeah, I mean, you need somebody there that
Knows
I
what's
believe
going on.
Kevin does have his first aid.
I think
so-
he just renewed it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you need one person there. Well, no, maybe two people, because you never know who's going to be the one that might get hurt, right? I think you need at least two people in a group of four that have first aid.
Yeah. If the guy who has it goes down, that doesn't do as much
Yeah.
good. So
And yeah,
it's not a bad thing to have
No.
regardless. So
and I mean, it applies to everything. So
we're going to be way the fuck up there too.
I've actually forgot about that, but I've been meaning to look that up online. I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should go together, much like getting your hunting license. It's better if two guys go together.
Yeah.
Makes it less, I don't know.
Yeah. So what do you learn?
Oh man. That was,
That we're not going to shoot a moose 20 miles into the bush?
no. And you know what? Like the way I sort of pictured it, even though I was like pushing for it, was I always thought like, okay, if we're like on our way in there or on our way out, or we don't hike as far as we think we're going to hike, because it really depends on the terrain. If it's an easy hike, 15 kilometers isn't that bad,
Yeah.
right?
Unless you're packing out 1,200 pounds.
Yeah, but if it's flat, which it looks like it is, it follows that creek bed, then it's not so
Yeah.
bad. You and I did,
Well, and depending on how big the creek is, maybe we should bring a little floaty,
we might, yeah,
right?
we can put that in Kevin's pack.
Replace his sock bag with a floaty.
Yeah, that's Oscar, if you're wondering what that was. So I think it really depends, but I guess it depends also on how big the animal is, because it's any bull. I think that's the same for all the species that we're going after, as far as caribou and that, it's any bull. So it depends. It really depends on the situation that we're in. And I think that's one of the things I said is that we'll know, hopefully, we'll make the right decision. But in the moment, we really have to consider what things are going to look like afterwards.
Yeah. I almost think that because we have a GPS, we should be making the rules before we even go, right? I don't know.
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, if you're going to hike in and say you cross the 5 mile boundary, unless something happens in the next 500 meters, I think that's your cutoff, right? Like, whatever that number is, like, as soon as we cross that 5 mile whatever, we cannot shoot an X. Like, I think we all got to be on the same page, because the danger of the situation decision is that we're always going to be vested in the getting the animal, right? And sometimes that can cloud your judgment.
On the other hand, too, though, it's like we've got a week long trip. We're 3 days into it.
Yeah, so that's another boundary. So I think it's like how many days, how many miles.
Yeah.
If we set those limits up front and we all agree to them, then we are not pressured into that situation where it's like we split up. Garrett's in a position where he can shoot a moose, and it's like he's not sure, or maybe it's us, right? Like, I don't know. I don't want one of us to be pressured into a situation where we're not sure, and then have to put everybody through that where it's not realistic.
But the other thing I was thinking too is like every morning before we're likely going to be splitting up into groups of 2, we have a meeting basically and saying, okay,
Tailgate.
Where's everybody going? What are our options? What should we do in this scenario? Do we go after a moose if we see one? Or have we passed that point and it's not going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
I think we just really have to assess every single day, make a plan. And it's going to be hard if we pass one of those points and we say, no, we're not going after a moose, and we see a fucking monster that day. But at the same time, it's like, if our trip's winding down and it's going to take 2 days to pack this thing out, and we've only got a day left, then forget it.
Because one of the great things about where we live is that's not going to be the last moose opportunity we have. Right?
No, it's going to be the first one. That's what'll make it hard.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the last one.
It won't be the last one.
So it's just being smart.
Yeah.
And I always think like, I'm somebody who always goes with my gut feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something you got to trust, because if it's a good call or a bad one.
Yeah.
And if there's any tiny percentage of doubt, then you probably shouldn't do it. But it's hard until you're in that situation. You don't really know.
Well, you made the right calls in every situation where I felt that you had to make that gut call. It's been the right one. But you're also more lenient to be walking right on that line, right?
Yeah.
And you'll walk right to the line, and then right at the last second, you'll make the gut decision based on, right? Which is great.
This is why we're good, why we're good hunting partners, is sometimes I probably go farther than what you want to hear, as far as like, don't worry about that, or let's go for it, or whatever.
I'm thinking about one example in particular where you were going to go up and around.
Yeah.
Right.
But I like to try and push everybody to, basically, if you have a goal and you try and push beyond that, you're going to reach that goal. You don't necessarily have to go to that next level, but I think if you're optimistic enough and you set really high goals, you don't necessarily have to get that far. But I just like to set everybody up for something that's going to push you out of your comfort zone, but I would never put us in a situation that wasn't good.
And hindsight's 20/20, because that night in that particular situation, we got rattled with a lightning storm. That would have been
crazy.
Having hiked that route the next day would have been an absolute disaster had we been up there, right?
No, we got to that fork in the trail, and I don't know. I just had it in my head that I wanted to cover a certain amount of ground, and again, like trying to push myself out of my comfort levels and stuff like that. But when we got there, it's like, nope, something's saying don't.
Yeah, and it's kind of pressing on. There's some force that's saying not to do it as much as you want to do it. So
yeah.
It's that internal battle that I think everybody's going to end up going through at some point in their hunting career.
sure.
Probably like every year once you get more into advanced
Mm-hmm.
hunting, right? And you
Yeah.
got to trust your gut.
On the other hand, if you know where, like that would have been the first time I took that route. If you know the trail and you know you're,
Yeah, if you know it.
go for it.
Yep.
And
Different
you
situation.
know you're going to be safe. But yeah. Yeah.
We
So
found
anyways,
out then the next day that the trail markers were out of whack, and half the time the trail disappeared on you.
Yeah.
Right.
totally.
So that would have been.
Especially because that storm rolled in and it got dark faster than we thought it was going to. And
Yeah.
that would have been a shitty situation for sure.
Yep.
Sure, I would have made it out alive, but I could have been spending the night out there.
Kevin and I would have been stressing big time.
Yeah, exactly. What else was I going to say? I don't know. I think that's it. Those are all things we need to consider. And I think we're going to line up a Skype call with all four of us pretty soon here to kind of start
Yep.
making goals, because we got to make them now. And Aaron had some really great points as far as,
I like the fuel point, making sure everybody's running the same fuel.
yeah.
The other thing that I think I was going to mention was the ability to go out on a 1 or 2 day backpack before a trip like that, right? So we live in a spot where we don't have to go too far to get to whether it's provincial parks or just outside of town. But the ability to go on hunts that are backpack for 1 or 2 days and test out all your gear.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, northern BC is a different world, obviously, but it should give you some sense of what your key pieces of gear are, right?
For sure.
And he said a puffy, and I totally agree with that. That is my blanket. I got a Sitka Kelvin Light hoodie, and I feel like no matter what shell I have in the pack, as long as I have some type of windproof shell,
Yeah.
I can get through pretty much anything as long as I have that insulation layer.
Yeah, I've got my Fjall Raven jacket. I love that thing.
Same type of thing.
It's like, your security blanket kind of thing. I love wearing. I wear it constantly, man. Like every day, I wear it down here. It was pouring rain today, and I walked in to work and just threw my North Face shell on top of that, and it's great.
Cool.
Yeah,
I do like your pack too. It's very. I just like my pack. I don't want to bash like the pack or anything because it's great for what it is, but
it's good for day trips, but
yeah, and bow hunting and stuff like that. But if you want a pack that you can strap a rifle to and a tripod and like all this stuff and have a rigid kind of frame, like you can strap your rifle to your pack and it sticks straight up. I put my rifle on my pack and it's kind of drooping over at a 45-degree angle, right? It's just not made for that type of hunting.
Yeah, the Fjall Raven is great because for that reason is like my rifle can go on the side there.
Yeah. And you got adjustable daisy chains on it.
Yeah, you can move them around.
Yeah.
You can also put the rifle on one side, tripod in the other, or it depends what I'm bringing. But I can also put my my little stool in there too, and then I can fit a ton of shit in there as well. Well, Kelly, should we wrap this up?
For sure.
Cool. Big thanks to Aaron.
Till next time.
Till next time, thanks for tuning in. Happy hunting.
Cheers.
Cheers.